start. You can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Amanda Bennett and I'm the Diversity, Equality and Inclusion Lead at Guide Dogs. I'm George's colleague. So my favourite Christmas song probably would be Slade.
Very nice.
Good one.
Beatrice, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Beatriz Fuentes. I'm the head of HR for a company called Movies with offices in Leeds and in Mersey. And favorite Christmas song will be All for Christmas. Mariah Carey.
Carol Smith, you're up next.
Hi there. Sorry, I was late joining, but I think I've understood what's going on. So I'm the director for Smartbox Group, which is the brand's Red Letter Days and Buy a Gift. And I think pick a Christmas song. Is that
your favorite?
Favorite Christmas song? I think Rocking Around the Christmas Tree.
It's a good one. Lively one, definitely. Caroline?
Hi, I'm Caroline from the Happiness Index. My favourite Christmas song is Louis Armstrong, Cool Yule. Bit out there. You don't know it.
I don't think I heard that.
We'll put
I
it
think
on.
I know it, yeah.
We should make a playlist. Claire Battle. She's not here, I can't see. Claire, are you there? I have her on the list, but I can't actually see her on the screen. Maybe we'll have to come back. Gemma.
Hello, I'm Gemma, also from the Happiness Index. My favourite Christmas song is really hard to narrow it down. I was going to say Slade, but Amanda's already said that, so I think I might go for one of the crooners ones. Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, that one. But there's so many. I love them all.
There are quite a few. Thanks, Gemma. George, go ahead.
Me?
Yep.
Okay, sorry.
No worries.
So my name's George. I work for Amanda at Guide Dogs. I'm HR work placement, so basically as low as you can go in Guide Dogs.
That's not true.
And no, but yeah. My favourite Christmas song is Christmas Lights by Coldplay.
Amazing. Thanks, George. Heidi, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Heidi Asprey from the Happiness Index. I'm the head of happiness. Sorry, I've had one of those mornings. I just want to work for you guys.
You're welcome.
I'm the head of happiness for a company called Vocovo. And my favourite Christmas song, sorry, I missed the beginning, is the Pogues. So I don't know if anyone said that already.
No, it hasn't been said.
Got to be the Pogues every time. And even if someone had said it, I'd have to say it again because I just love that song.
Thanks, Heidi.
Sorry, I'm going to take my camera off because I'm just about to eat my lunch. So
no worries. Yeah, you guys don't have to have your camera on if you're eating lunch or just want to turn it off. It's okay. Jenny, you're up next.
Hey, hi everyone. Good to see you. Jenny Workman from Arup. Favorite Christmas song? It's a bit kooky. Katie Tunstall, Maliki Leaky Maka. Because
I love that one.
It's just so joyful, and it's got kazoos in it. Anything with a kazoo in is going to get my vote.
Love that. Thanks, Jenny. Joe, you're up next.
Hi, I'm Joe. I'm also at the Happiness Index, and my favourite Christmas song is Last Christmas by Wham. Big fan.
My favourite too. Thanks, Joe. Julian, good to see you again.
Hey. Hi, everyone. I'm Julian Orgill, founder at humnotdrum.com. Business is about a week old. And
congratulations.
I am a business that is here to give your people audio communications that will help to boost collectivity and engagement. I'm not here to sell. I'm here to learn and understand all the challenges that we're under. In terms of favorite Christmas songs, for me, it's the Little Drummer Boy, David Bowie and Bing Crosby.
Oh, beautiful.
And the just the weirdness of the video and David Bowie's face wins it for me. And also there's my favorite Christmas album, the alternative choice.
Oh, going extra mile.
The recent one. It's called Tinsel and Lights, and it's Tracy Thorn, the lead singer from Everything But the Girl, doing Christmas covers, and it is a delight.
I'll have to check that one out. I haven't heard of that.
Check it out. You won't be disappointed.
Thanks, Julian. Kevin, you're up next. We have two Kevins today, actually. Kevin Withane and Kevin O'Brien. Who's going first?
I'll go first. I'm unmuted already. Kevin O'Brien from Williams Kent. We're a HR recruitment firm. You've all nicked and stolen the best Christmas songs. I would have probably said the Pogues. So I'm going completely rogue and with the one that sticks in my head, which is Leona Lewis, One More Sleep.
All right, Kevin Withane, you're up next.
I'm Kevin Withane. I work for TI Fluid Systems, which is a UK listed company. I will go with Mariah Carey's version of All I Want for Christmas, but that could be, it stuck with me since I was a teenage boy. But since I've become a dad, Dominic the Donkey, and I like it even more because our chief HR officer is called Dominic.
Fantastic.
Excellent. Very good. Margarita.
Hi, I'm a Chief Happyfier and well-being consultant. So I work with organizations, the community and individuals. And as I said already, my Christmas song is Nat King Cole with Chestnut One.
Thanks,
It's
Margarita.
with mulled wine. So that's the one for me.
I can't wait for mulled wine. I do love it. Maria, your turn.
Thanks. So I'm Maria Riley. I'm an independent HR consultant under the guise of Acorns and Oaks because I'm a massive nature junkie. I was going to go Fairy Tale New York as well, but which is the best Christmas song by a country mile. But Walking in a Winter Wonderland, the other one, because it's quite cheerful. It's got sleigh bells and it kind of reminds me of the Arctic. So yeah, that one.
Lovely, thank you. Rebecca, you're up.
Hey, oh, I hate having a name that's so far down the alphabet now. This is horrible. Rebecca, I should have gone with Becky Hogan. That would have been an easier one to respond to. I'm the HR director for a company called Cubico Sustainable Investments. We're a global renewable investor and owner operator, so largely wind and solar farms. And my favourite Christmas song, I'm going to have to go with it still. I know Gemma said it is Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, because that was my first dance actually at my wedding. I danced to it, so I'm still going to stick by it.
Oh, I love that. Thanks, Rebecca. Spencer, you're up next.
I'm Spencer and I work for a hotel company called The Bear. My favourite Christmas song, unfortunately, because of my hearing disability, so I was have to say, Tears for Fear is Everybody Wants to Rule the World. So
that's a great song.
I want to play for Christmas time.
Oh, thank you, Spencer. I love that. Silke, you're up next. I think you're muted.
Yes, I am. Hi, everyone. My name is Silke Britton. I run a company called Clear Voice. We get involved in employee engagement and culture change. And well, there's not much left. I would have gone for Joe's Wham.
You can still go for it.
Yeah, but I think I might have to go for something like It's Beginning to Look a Lot Like Christmas. If I don't know whether anybody's chosen.
I love the way that one starts off. You can't help but not sing along to it.
Yes.
Cool. Thank you, Silke. And Sophie, you, I believe, are last on our list.
Hello, I'm Sophie. I'm head of people at Digital Theatre. We're an EdTech online platform for the arts. And my favourite Christmas song, I would have said Wham as well, but Driving Home for Christmas is a great one to put on. Although, are we going to be doing that this year?
All right. Well, thank you, everybody. I liked that. Put a smile on my face. So good way to start the show. So today we have Spencer, Amanda, and George to talk about, share with us a little bit about sensory disabilities in the workplace and some of the challenges that have come up since the changes with COVID. And so I'd like to just start off with Spencer and Amanda and George. You guys should share a little bit about yourselves, what you do at your organization, and what you're working on at the moment. Spencer, if you'd like to kick off.
Okay. Hello, I'm Spencer again. I work for a company, which is a hotel company called Devere, Redfield Estates. Actually, a hotel training management. I'm there for 2 years, and because of the coronavirus, currently furloughed at the moment. So, I've also been helping several startup technology company as an inclusion specialist.
Thanks, Spencer. George, if you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, so my name's George again, and I'm HR work placement at Guide Dogs. So, in the work that I've been doing either side of being furloughed was it's mainly sort of research and demographics. So the work that I'm doing at the minute, Guide Dogs, we want to make our recruitment process more inclusive. So I've been assigned a task of researching how the census and the census organizes we'll call them characteristics such as gender, age, ethnicity, marital status, sexuality, what have you, and I'm basically researching them, and then we're going to compare the ones that the census says and compare them to how Guide Dogs currently categorizes them, and see how we can make ourselves more inclusive in our recruitment process.
I love that. Great. Thanks for sharing that. We'll touch on that a little bit later in the show. And Amanda, if you'd like to just share a little bit about what you do at Guide Dogs.
Hi, yeah, I'm Amanda, and I'm the lead for diversity, equality, and inclusion at Guide Dogs. And George, as he has said, does work for me, and he is not the lowest of the Guide Dogs pecking order at all. He's the centre of my working world most days. So he does an amazing job, and he sold himself a bit short there because he's also done a phenomenal piece of work on financial literacy for our staff, because we did an equality impact assessment of our response to COVID, and at one point during the summer we reduced pay down to 90% for those that were furloughed, so not the government's 80 but to 90. And when we did our equality impact assessment, some of our staff told us that pushed them to food banks and to payday loan companies, which I think our chief exec is still reeling now a month later. But what that told us really was that if people are so close to the wire that 90% pay pushes them that far over the edge, that then probably we could do more to support them aside from COVID. So George has done what is a stunning piece of work to identify all the financial support organisations around the country and group them together around our regional centres, so that people can find on his database can find access to support mainly from voluntary sector or not-for-profit organisations within that area, though, to get support with their financial literacy. So that's a huge piece of work that he's done. George is right that we are keen to become more diverse. We're very good. We're quite good, I think George would tell me. With visual impairment, we are not very diverse in terms of ethnicity for all sorts of historical reasons, but we're hoping to address that. And another piece of work again that George has done is to identify the sight loss BAME community by our regional centres, so that we can then compare how many people from Black, Asian and minority ethnic communities have sight loss in that area, and what proportion of them do we currently work with, so that we can see why we're not reaching them and what can we do to expand our reach. So that again is a big piece of work. We've just made an amazing video that we may be able to share in the future to give colleagues hints and tips on how to be a good colleague to someone who's visually impaired, and it's been co-produced with George and some of our other colleagues who are visually impaired to give just tips. So like say who you are on a Zoom call or a Teams call, say it's Amanda speaking or it's Rosie speaking, rather than just chipping in and out, because that makes it a lot easier to orientate yourself if you can't see, and to do things like not leave people stood in kitchens talking to themselves because you've wandered off and they haven't seen you go. So it's a really great resource that we've worked hard on over the last few months, haven't we, George?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah.
It sounds like you guys are all up to some really great work at the moment. And Amanda, when that is ready, if you would like to share that with us, that would be fantastic. I'm sure we'd all love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think they're not peculiar to guide dogs, really. Any of the things that we've covered on it, would be the same in any workplace, really. So, and probably if we could give you guys one thing from today, it would be to just say who you are as you start speaking on calls. Because I'm just looking on here, and there's like 6, 12, there's the best part of 20 odd people on here, and if you can't see, it's very difficult if you've never met people before, which we haven't, to know who's coming next. You can't see some of the visual cues that I might pick up on to know that it's going to be you next, Rosie, or because you can start to see people change their body language. Well, if you can't see, you don't know that. So it'd be good to just say it's who you are speaking, then it just helps people to feel more included.
Definitely. And that's a great point, Amanda. If anybody does have questions as we go through, please introduce yourself before you ask your question. That would be helpful.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get down into my questions, more of a deeper dive into understanding some of the bigger challenges that you, Spencer, and you, George, have faced since COVID has changed and flipped our worlds around. And I guess this question is directed at both of you from both of your perspectives. So whoever would like to start, it's up to you. Maybe George can start.
Yeah.
Are you going to ask him the question then, Rosie, or?
Yeah. So if you could just share, I guess, what are some of the biggest challenges you've had this year, that, especially with all the changes that have been introduced through COVID?
I think the biggest change for me as a guide dog owner is that obviously guide dogs aren't trained to socially distance. So basically, I mean, when I have gone into town or something, I could be walking through the shopping centre and there'll be people coming towards me. It might be like a narrow aisle or something, and people will expect me to socially distance, but I mean, I do have some useful vision, but I don't have enough to be able to see how far away they are from me. And obviously my guide dog, Yoko, she doesn't understand how to socially distance. So when I've had a few instances in the past where I've walked past people who are sort of very tightly packed in a shopping centre or something, and they all sort of, I can sense them giving me funny faces and funny looks. So social distancing with a guide dog is very difficult. So if you do see somebody with a guide dog or somebody who's visually impaired, even if they've got a cane or if they've got a sighted guide with them, a person guiding them, it's just good to just keep your distance and just make sure if the person is on your own, it sometimes might be good to say, I'm here, I've stepped out of the way, I'm socially distancing, you can go past if it's like a narrow corridor or something. So I think that's been the most difficult thing for me.
Yeah, because I know, George, that when we first started, we've been writing some guidance together, haven't we, about how people can use our buildings with visually impaired staff in there as well. And we've trialed some really fancy pants technology that buzzes if you're within 2 meters of someone else. That hasn't worked for us because if they're 2 meters away but on the other side of a wall, it still buzzes and then you don't know where they are. But one of the big things that you said, didn't you, George, was that if we have a rule that everyone keeps left, so that in an ideal world, that should keep you the 2 meter distance away. But guide dogs are trained to walk down the centre of a space, not to one side or the other. So that if you've got your dog in harness, that causes a problem. But that if you can, even if what we've said in guide dogs is that the sighted people need to take responsibility for the social distancing. But even if that happens, if you're coming past and you can't see and you can hear their feet, but they haven't said where they are in relation to you, that's quite anxiety provoking. So if you're coming past someone, to just say, "Hi George, it's Amanda, I'm coming past on the right, but I'm 2 meters away," or "Just stay there, George, because this is getting narrow and I'll come past you and then you can carry on." So to just to have that level of communication.
Definitely. Thank you, George and Amanda. Spencer, if you'd like to carry on with the question, just some of the biggest challenges to make us all more aware, I guess, of what has changed for you since COVID, and just in the workplace and in general, really.
Yeah, the biggest challenge I've come up with is fake mark. Because of my hearing disability, I find it typical delivery when people wear a fake mark. And I know it's struggling for a lot of people, especially for those who suffer with the anxiety or other kinds of disabilities. So when I go out to a shop or petrol station or any retailers, they all have to wear a fake mask. But sometimes if you're dealing with the maybe sales department, they have a special screen so they can communicate people without wearing the mask. But more often, you see quite a lot of people, like workers, they wear fake masks to protect themselves. And it's harder for me to understand what other people are saying, especially you're in a queue. When you go to Tesco and Morrison, especially Lidl, you see all these food keep going past.
They move really fast.
And it's non-stop, and it's harder for me to say, "Can you just stop a minute while I put all the food in my bag?" But all the shopkeepers are wearing the mask on, and they just muffle through the mask, and it's harder for me. And that's the first thing. The second thing is I have got long tinnitus. I've got tinnitus, like I've had it for a long time, and it's like a high shriek noise. So it's very hard for me to know whether the burger's got a fire alarm going off. So I don't want to embarrass myself, say, it's a fire alarm, or is it me? So I don't want to put myself a label. So that's why it is very, very tough when people wear fake masks. But now they've got like a shield. But the only problem is when people breathe and it just fogs the whole screen up.
Right.
Yeah.
Again, it could be a massive problem. So again, it's a big challenge I've come across with this.
Has there been anything that you've how have you kind of tried to get over that barrier of the face mask, Spencer?
Yes. When I was working in a hotel, where I am at the moment, I use my phone. So I always say, look, I found this gap because in the government website, for those people who wear masks, there are exceptions to wear masks. If they're dealing with somebody who found this gap, so they are allowed to take the mask off and communicate with me. Or I could say, can you please write it down on a piece of paper so I can actually read? I mean, a lot of deaf people can read. So I could say, can you write it down so I could be able to read this and respond? So that is the kind of challenge we can overcome it. But not many people don't have the carry their pen in their pocket. So they can put in their notebook on their phone or put it in their keyboard so they can reply in a text message. So I hope through the technology there will be a way of like a closed captioning so I can be able to read what other people are saying.
Right. I think that's one. I know there's been so many negatives about COVID, but I think one positive with meetings, for example, like Google Meets, they've added in closed captioning for virtual meetings, and that's something that we've had to consider now as we're all working remotely. So it's unfortunate the circumstances that we're in, and there are new challenges, but we are trying to adapt as well. So that's one positive at least. And so another question for you both, Spencer and George. How can we help our friends and family and colleagues, anyone in our lives really, to overcome these challenges? And like, especially like Amanda, you said with doing Zoom meetings and introducing ourselves is a great tip. Is there anything else that you, Spencer or George, could bring to our attention that we can maybe be more mindful of and just consider?
So I think for me, I don't know when people are going to get back into the office for good, but if you are in the office and if you do have somebody who's visually impaired or just for any disability really, I think, make sure that you don't leave stuff on the floor or leave chairs in the way, because even like the smallest little thing, like an empty bottle can roll onto the floor. And yes, it's just a very light, empty plastic bottle, but at the same time, it can still act as a trip hazard. So, and for somebody who's got limited mobility, it might cause a problem for them as well. But also, if you take something off a desk to borrow it quickly, make sure you put it back in the same place. I mean, we've had, I know this is a very different thing, but we came back from me and my dad came back from a short break in the Lake District and came back to trying to find the dogs' bowls to feed them last night, and they'd been moved by the cleaner who come in, and we spent ages looking for them, and so it's sort of like that. But yeah, so I know that's a really bad example. Also, as Amanda said, when you're on calls like this, it's always good to say, hi, it's so and so, I want to ask a question. Same thing with if you're in the office, if somebody comes into the room and you've got a visually impaired colleague working in the office, it's always good to say, hi George, it's so and so, I've just come in to have a chat with whoever. But I think that's all that I can really say, to be honest.
George, what about things like what we said in the video, that if somebody is visually impaired, that they're still a person and they've still got a life and interest and things to talk about? What about that people need to see past your visual impairment?
Yeah, because I think people forget that. Well, my parents have always taught me that with will one can do anything. So it doesn't matter that if you're visually impaired or if you're in a wheelchair. I know this is a really extreme example again, but you can go skydiving if you wanted to. But
don't you be going skydiving? I've work for you to do.
Don't worry, I'm too scared to do skydiving anyway. But I get scared going down hills and karsts sometimes. But yeah, so basically, there's nothing to just because you're in a wheelchair or you've not got very good eyesight, or you've got like a limb amputation or something, it doesn't mean that it can stop you doing something.
But George, what sometimes it might need is for you to be given a little bit of extra help.
Exactly, yeah. So basically, say for example, if you've got a new starter in the company who's, for example, disabled or something, sometimes you might need to ask them, here's a new piece of work for them, do you want me to give you a bit more time to work on it? And they can always say no. It's always good to say no, but
So things we were thinking of, weren't we, George? Because George, as he's explained several times now, is an intern at Guide Dogs, so his time in this role will come to an end, which I'm very sad about because I love working with him. But so he's been applying for jobs at Guide Dogs. So some of the things we've been talking about is like if he gets an interview for something, that he needs to be given extra time to complete any tasks or like little tests that might be set, because what might take me 10 minutes to read a document and decide how I want to respond, because George needs to use his Zoom Zoom text magnification equipment, and he needs to possibly use his magnifying glass or his iPad as well to allow him to have the same access to it, it wouldn't be unreasonable, and we would make sure that George got maybe 25 or 30 minutes to complete a task that everyone else only got 15 or 24, because he needs that extra time to participate on a level playing field.
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like in exams, like at school and at university, I had extra time to complete the task, or, well, I didn't have extra time for coursework, I'd tell a lie, but for exams and that. But I remember one of the very first pieces of work I had to do at university was a piece of homework. And it said, oh, you should spend at least an hour to an hour and a half on doing this. And I did it on my own, and it took me 5 hours.
Right.
But you did it, which is why you'd be a good skydiver.
Yeah.
Not on my watch.
No. But yeah, so it's basically examples like that. So it might not take a lot longer than somebody who's I don't like to say the word normal, but who's fully able-bodied, shall we say. Yeah.
It's about giving you the tools so that you can play on a level playing field with everyone else, isn't it?
Right, 100%. Thank you, George. Spencer, did you have any input on that?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Doom. That's because of code captioning. I don't know, for my local like we had David Hospital in Bromley Park Hospital, I'm speaking of the patron with hearing disability, and I work along with all the senior nurses, doctors to try to make it worse for the patron with coronavirus. Now we can't use one-to-one interpreter with the real person. Everything now online, they use iPad, so they use like Zoom. The only problem with Zoom is it's a matter of how much of broadband is the Wi-Fi. Sometimes you get if you've been on the Zoom for about half an hour, you get the broken pattern. They're not quite smooth. So we've had to come up with like a test of every platform, such as Microsoft Teams, Google Meet, Zoom, and many more. And because of the push with closed captioning, we find Zoom very complicated. So you have to add on with a lot of software to download. It's more complicated. So we've decided to go for Microsoft Teams, where you can pinpoint which people you want to have it on your screen. Well, with Google Meet, you can have a combination of everything like whiteboard, presentation, Word document, exactly. They're helpful for me. I can understand what other people are talking about, and I can see what they are talking about in terms of presentation. So that's helpful. That's the first thing.
Definitely.
The second thing is the chatbot on every website. I've had a major problem with that website one time, and they have that sort of pop-up message sort of speaking to a robot. So it's very hard to tell for a deaf person to know, am I speaking to a real person or am I speaking to a robot? And I would like to hear a human voice, but unfortunately, it's very hard for me to know, am I speaking to a real person? So that's what is happening now. In the lockdown, we try to improve the quality of how to improve life better when people go through depression or people go through inequality and we feel isolated in their own world. So it can be useful if you can have a real life person like with a webcam, so you can talk to people on a chatbot, so you can know who you're talking to. So that is a bit kind of accessibility for people with hearing disability. So that's me.
Definitely. Spencer, yeah, I didn't really consider before with the bandwidth thing that you mentioned. It's like there might be lags in connection that Someone like me, I don't have to be considerate of, but that's something definitely that is a challenge I'm sure is difficult to overcome.
Rosie, sorry to interrupt. I've just thought of something else, which might be of use for anybody who's learning how to work with visually impaired colleagues. So there are various different assistive software tech that that you can use for a computer. Like I use a program called Supernova, which is a magnification and speech program that I mainly just use the magnifier. And it might be, and there are other people, like some colleagues where I work at the National Breeding Centre, who use stuff like JAWS, which is purely speech, speech technology. And it might be a good idea for somebody who's never worked with visually impaired people to just have a play around with, say for example, navigate Outlook with Supernova, which is Supernova is probably the best one as opposed to Zoom text because it is so temperamental. The amount of times I have nearly thrown the computer out of the window due to Supernova.
In fact, just before we came on here, George, in fact.
Yes, exactly. That is exactly why I was a bit late coming on this meeting.
And why his dad was in the background.
Yeah. And then another thing which obviously that's technology, but something which might be a little bit better, because guide dogs and several other visually impaired charities have these things called sim specs or simulation specs, which replicate different eye conditions like glaucoma, retinitis pigmentosa, and what have you. And so basically get people to wear those and just perform everyday tasks. Like one of my favorite ones to do with people using sim specs is, say you're in a shop, you've got to get this amount of money, there's a queue of impatient people behind you that you can't see, try and find that money as quick as you can. So just even simple little things like that.
Yeah, there's an app, George, called iWare. So if people don't have access to SimSpec, you can download the app called iWare and you can pick the visual impairment you want to experience and set it up, and it will give you on your phone different examples of severity of it. So that's quite a good thing to do. And in our sighted guide service, we use that to show friends and family what someone's going to be able to see with their visual impairment, which is quite good as well. So
I mean that is a good way of doing it, but there's one thing that you should bear in mind: no visual impairment is the same. So you could have two people who've both got something like macular degeneration, but one person could say, "Oh, I've got more of this I've got more sort of irritation in my left eye than I have in my right."
Yeah. And that's why we would always say, wouldn't we, George, that if somebody's new into the organisation, any organisation, that the first thing to do is not only to ask what's wrong with their eyes, but also what that means for them, because
and how much they can see.
If they have something like RP, then you could have 4 people in a room with retinitis pigmentosa and they could all see something different. So to be person-centred, you need to know what that means for that one person, rather than assuming that because you know that they've got a particular kind of disease that it'll depend on its progression, how long they've had it, you know, where it started from, as to what they can see at any one time. So we would always say, and I think it goes for whether you're visually impaired, a wheelchair user, or deaf, or you have acquired hearing loss, that there's no substitute for just being person-centred and saying, what do you need from us in order for you to have the same opportunities as everyone else, because it'll be different for everyone.
Right.
And people are also different in terms of their level of technical ability as well. So George is young, you know, he's quite tech savvy, he's got lots of tech available to him that helps. You are. Whereas we have other people who just don't use tech at all, and so then that then makes life more of a challenge for them.
I don't know if you heard of Be My Eye, because I've been to create an award-winning app for people with disability, and they have a group of volunteers who would like the poor people with disability. And when they go to the shop, they have that kind of also the poor people with disability.
Yeah.
Within retailers or cinema or anywhere, you've got someone with you all the time. And I think it's a brilliant app. And it's called Be My Eyes. And
Yeah, we recommend that quite a lot, Spencer, because it's good as well. We have a man in where I used to be before I came into this role in Manchester, and he's an older man. He's in his 70s, and he went to the shop wearing his wife's pink frilly nightie under his coat because it felt similar to a polo shirt. And it was only when he got in the post office that the postmaster, who knew him, said, "Why have you got your wife's nightie on under your coat?" And he was like, "Oh, I didn't know I did have." So the Be My Eyes helps then, because you can dial into the app if you're savvy enough to have that kind of technology, and they'll say, even just looking in your cupboard, that's the beans, that's the tomatoes, that's the tin peaches or whatever. So
yeah, that's useful. I actually recently had an opportunity to check out Jaws. I never heard of it before, but one of our employee voice clients had a colleague who was sensory impaired, and he used Jaws. And so we set up, instead of having the sliding scale to leave your score, we set up a separate page where you could select separate buttons to leave your score. And that was compatible with Jaws, but definitely something I never really actually looked at before. But I recommend definitely everybody, if Amanda, if you could share some of those links with us as well, that would be great.
Yeah, I'm sure we can. And also, we would recommend accessible document training, because every document should be accessible for everyone, because you don't know who's going to pick it up and read it. So, and the difference between, so for example, if you're sending out a Zoom link, which might be 8 miles long, with all the different characters, if you're a JAWS user, it will read out every one of those characters, which takes it forever. Whereas if you put a hyperlink in and put click here, it'll just read out here, and then it'll take you through to the link. So
Jen, question?
Hi, yeah, Jen Workman here. I also just wanted to mention, particularly for Amanda and George as well, my mum had macular degeneration, and it was one of those things where her experience was different every day. And so a bit like at the moment, we keep saying to people, checking with each other how you're feeling, maybe checking with that person as well, you know, if you know about the disability, or if you don't, actually ask questions about how it feels today, because she used to suffer terribly on different weather days. And actually just activate that curiosity inside you, ask it in a respectful way, but most of the time I know she really appreciated being asked rather than it assumed where she was with things. So find a way. I hope that's the right thing to say, Amanda and George.
No,
tell me if not.
It's always good to ask. It's always good to ask. I mean, my eyesight varies on different days, and like your mum, I mean, on sort of certain weather days, if it's very muggy outside, it won't affect my eyes, but I'll get a migraine. I actually had one earlier this morning, which is and the migraine in turn actually made my eyes a little bit bad. But generally they're all right from day to day. They do get a bit worse in the evenings, but then, you know, it depends on, like, if I wasn't taking my hay fever tablets back in March, and all of a sudden my left eye was all misty and I could hardly see out of it. So yeah, it's always good to ask how your eyes are doing. But yeah, you know, the upshot of it is probably going to be, oh, they're absolutely fine. But always good to check. But my parents have always taught me, brick wall. Imagine a brick wall, and if there's a crack in it, if you repair that crack straight as soon as you find it, it's going to be fine. But if you leave that crack, then it could, who knows what could happen, say.
Well, I'm conscious of time, everybody. I only have this set for 45 minutes. I did have one question about recruitment, but unfortunately we've run out of time. But I just wanted to say thank you so much, Spencer and George and Amanda, for coming on. I think having this conversation, like you said, about just simply asking how your colleague or friend or family member with a sensory disability is doing, it's sometimes people are scared to ask those questions because they're afraid of maybe asking it incorrectly or something. But having this conversation just makes us all more open to maybe starting that conversation. So I just want to
Definitely.
thank you so much.
Yeah.
Do you guys have any last statements you want to say before we shut down for the day?
My only last statement, Rosie, would be exactly that don't be scared to ask, because of all the visually impaired people I work with in guide dogs, of which there are many, I've never yet had one say to me, how dare you ask about that? They're glad that you have asked, because then you're asking because you want to try and make something person-centered for them. So you'd be unlucky, I don't know whether Spencer would agree in the deaf and hearing loss sector, but you would be unlucky to get somebody who would be really offended and upset that you asked about their eye condition, because they know that everybody's different and that by asking you're trying to be person-centered. So George, would you have anything extra to add?
Not really. I mean, no, I think
I have one word to guide before I go. For the recruitment guide or for the recruitment sector, I would forget the guy can make the text or comment you can ignore. It's important and it's not good, any good for people with disabilities. And I suggest if people with disabilities want to apply for a specific job, to take them for a trial or do some kind of a test role. And then give them some ideas of how they can make it better for the company, rather than they go through all the applications or recruitment sector. Thing there will be a shame in the recruitment world for people with disabilities. So maybe you could be more transparent, equal, unfair. So maybe you can do like a one-to-one through a webcam and make it life a lot easier. So that's something the recruitment sector will need to look into. Yeah.
Great. Thank you, Spencer. Appreciate that. George, did you have anything else to say?
no. I think everything I've said, I could have said has been said, really. So.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Next week, I will be back home in the United States in a different time zone, but I'll share over details of our next episode coming up soon. And thanks, everyone, for joining on. Hopefully, see you next time.
Okay.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye.
No, bye. I've never done this before. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah.
How do I do this?
Brilliant. No worries, I'll get that done. Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you. Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.
All right.
Yeah, and that
Yeah, well.
more cards on the
Okay.
What? So who are you talking to? Obviously, Amanda was one of the.
Yeah, it was the Happiness in Humans group chat. Well, no, not group chat, but there we go. So yeah, it was just a load of people who work in different organisations, and it was about how to. No, they were listening more really. Could you help me? As I can't hang off this call.
Okay.
And I can see the button down there, the hang up. The hang up button, but I can't put the mouse to it.